Fruit drops. That was it.
That's your fucking intro?
I mean, it references the movie.
Yeah, but, like, people don't even know what the fuck we're watching.
Are you sure? I mean, for people who know, the title probably says it.
What if it's, like, came up on a random play now? Like, what if it's a new person watching the show? Hey guys, and welcome to Movie Mumbles, where the mumbles have movies and the movies have mumbles. I'm here with my boy Roy. Say hi, Roy.
Fruit drops.
Don't do the fruit drops.
Okay, so yeah, welcome back to Movie Mumbles. It's been a while on our end. It's been a while since we recorded the last Movie Mumble session.
It's probably been it might be a while on your end.
Probably
well.
over.
I don't know. Depends.
Over a month, maybe. I don't know.
Depends how quickly Roy gets his shit together.
We'll see. We'll see. But anyways, so yeah, we're continuing with the theme of Studio Ghibli movies, and the last couple of picks have been Miyazaki movies. And while Miyazaki is definitely a big part of Studio Ghibli, I decided to go for one of his one pick from his contemporary, essentially, and that's the classic, very, very, very lighthearted, happy film, Grave of the Fireflies. So yeah.
Yes. I was laughing all the way through.
Yeah, a very lighthearted, very, just heartwarming. Okay.
I really like this film. I absolutely really like it's weird because...
Spoilers, before...
Oh, yeah, spoilers. There's going to be fucking spoilers ahead. So if you haven't seen the film, go and watch it, because it's definitely worth it.
Okay, so yeah. What were we going to say? Or you want to just go...
So, I like, in the build-up to, like... I'm not gonna lie. In between the last recording and this recording, I actually forgot what we were supposed to be watching. So I messaged Roy. I was like, "What the fuck are we watching?" And I was like, "I'll just guess. I'll watch Grave of the." Luckily, I got it right. But here's the thing: I was actually watching a documentary, like literally a week before I watched this, about World War II.
Yeah.
So I was like, "Oh shit." I didn't realize that this was anything to do with World War II at all. It's pretty interesting.
Okay, so basically, quick plot synopsis. The main gist is there's these two kids named Saito and Satsuki. They're just younger, a boy and a girl. They're kind of struck at the very end of World War II, so it's wartime, and there's like these bombs going off, and just a lot of very, very sad shit happens, essentially. Like, the film opens with Saito dying, like just straight up, like he like they don't even like.
That's like, it's not even like a kind death. It's starvation in a shelter, and everyone around him is just like, that's another one.
Yeah,
like it's like nobody gives a shit about. This story is literally about nobody giving a shit.
Exactly.
That is what this.
Like they don't like any usually when they do like super sad, depressing movies, they start off kind of light, like think of like Marley and Me or something like that. They don't just straight up give away like this is gonna be a fucking depressing film, but like straight up Saito's starving, he's starved to death, and like and it gets more depressing from there. Like it gets like that's not even the worst part.
Yeah, it builds and builds and builds. Like, although having said that, all the way through that initial sequence where like there's hardly any dialogue, the music's very, very quiet in the background, and you're just kind of like holding your breath.
Your breath.
I haven't spoken all day. Well, I haven't spoken for the last like 4 hours because I've been at home just kind of chilling. But yeah, you're just like holding your breath like throughout the intro, and you're just like, okay. Yep. And then they threw this can out that you don't know what it is, and it ends up that later in this...
Oh yeah, the can.
In this can, there's like little stones in there.
Or stones?
Well, yeah, it was stones at the end because all the fruit drops had gone.
It's her ashes. Don't you remember?
Oh, yeah. I remember.
Those were fucking ashes that fell out because
it's been like a week and a half since I watched this film, so I'm a little bit foggy on the what actually happened.
Quick thing, did you watch the sub or dub version of this film? Yeah, I know you had it on DVD.
I watched the subbed version of this.
Okay,
because that's the only one that's available in my country.
Oh, really? Okay, I watched the dub. I watched the dub version, and like. It's good for like most of the actors are good, but like the voice of Setsuko is kind of noticeable. So The person who let me just quick thing. The person who voices Setsuko also voiced the original Speed Racer. So
right.
so,
Okay. Well, okay. So there's actually something really, really interesting. I did a little bit of research on this after the fact, and there's actually something really interesting about the original casting roles. Basically, from the start of the production, what's the name of the director? Is it
Isao? Okay, I'm gonna butcher this, but Isao Takahata, I think.
Takahata, that's it.
Yeah.
Basically, he wanted the appropriately aged children for the roles of the two kids, right?
Yeah.
And because the film takes place in Kobe, or whatever, however you pronounce. Right. Okay. So let's just go from now out. All pronunciations are going to be fucked up.
Yeah.
I apologize.
Yeah.
So yeah, they limited the search down to the Kenzai region of Japan.
Right.
So they got the right children who spoke the proper dialects and everything like that.
Yeah.
When he was first introduced to the actress who played the sister,
Satsuki, yeah.
like apparently their agent had only asked them to say like two sentences.
Wow.
The first one was "My name is," whatever her name was, and the second one was "I'm 5 years old," and that was it. It was later discovered that the agency only gave her those two lines because
she wasn't literate.
They felt that she was too young for the part. She was only 5 years old, right?
Wow.
So
really?
they felt that she was too young to the part, but then she got the part just from those two lines.
Wow.
Because she sounded so like perfect. So yeah, I was actually pretty interested in that after. It was on my Amazon thing that when it popped up, and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. I'll write that down.
So they got an actual kid for the dub version. They didn't for the sub version, and unfortunately, it does kind of sound like the kid sounds like an older woman doing a kid's voice. It's kind of.
You mean the other way around?
Yeah. Yeah. What do you know? An older person trying to emulate a kid for the English.
No. You said for the subbed version they got an older person, and for the dubbed version they got a younger person.
No, I said
it's the other way around.
Whatever.
The original version has the children.
I don't like the dubbed version isn't like perfect, but I think it does a decent enough job like capturing the feel. I was still fucking depressed by the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Like it was.
I haven't seen the dub version. Yeah, I couldn't get a hold of that. Like I said, I do have a rule with animation. Usually for foreign films, I'll watch the original version with subtitles. But usually for animation, I can let it go and I'll watch dubbed versions. But I couldn't actually get a dubbed version in the country. And I'm actually kind of glad that I didn't, especially after I found out that the actors were children. And it sounded like in the subbed version, the original version, they sound like kids.
Okay.
It sounds like kids are playing kids.
I kind of want to see that.
I can't understand what they're saying, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I think
it was good.
I want to track down.
Props off to the actors, props off to the directors and everything like that for pulling that off.
Okay, I want to track down the sub version because that does sound interesting, and I do think probably the performances in that will be better than the dubbed version, just on the fact that they have authentic children who give, I'm assuming, decent performances as the kids. And that would probably have more impact, given the story. Let's just talk about, because for me, if the whole film felt like this kind of roller coaster where, there were it wasn't just a full-on, depression fest, essentially. There was, these kind of, there was these nice, quiet scenes where, the kids are kind of playing around, There's obviously a darker tone to most of them, and usually there's something to ruin emotionally the moment, but there's always those light moments where Setsuo and Saita are just kind of playing around. They're kids, essentially. They're at the beach, or they're playing in the bath, or something like that. Just they are. There's an authenticity to the fact they act like actual children. Children have to go through a really fucked up situation, but children all throughout. There was never a point where it was
they're still kids essentially, and the film captures that incredibly well. And here's what the weird thing is, because a lot of people, when it originally was released, it didn't go to America because America was like, oh, now it gave the Japanese sympathy for their involvement in the war and that sort of thing. But it's well. either way you look at war, there's always going to be children that are suffering. There's always going to be civilians that aren't really involved in the war. There's always going to be the people who are suffering under oppression or whatever. So in this sense of it, it was the fact that the Americans who were just over the top, or you guys who were just over the top bombing Japan towards the end to try and get Japan to surrender, and Japan's just like, no, we ain't surrendering. This ain't gonna be a thing. And then obviously we know how that ends.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, interesting for a lot of reasons. First off, like, there is really no American presence in the film. It's just kind of like they're fighting some unknown enemy. Like, there's none of that. And interestingly, I knew a bit about the Grave of the Fireflies. I knew it was about World War II and that stuff. I'm surprised the Hiroshima bomb was never, like, for some reason, I was expecting, like, that would play a part in the movie. Well, but it never really did.
It's set around Kobe, which is a completely different region of Japan.
That's true.
So it's all about, like, the firebombing. Around there.
I know. I heard like the Japanese film about World War II. I just kind of assumed like the big bombs would like take part, as messed up as that is. But yeah, what's your thoughts on the general message of the film? Because like it very much seems like an anti-war film. But tell me what you thought.
I'm not really that bothered by the war part. I'm more looking at a social commentary on like how people perceive other people during wartime. So, for instance, you've got the aunt that comes in.
Oh yeah, god damn it.
She starts off very caring. She's looking after the kids, but because it's wartime, she's struggling. She's struggling to come up with justifications for looking after these kids. They're not hers. Both parents are presumed dead or missing or not there. They're effectively orphans, so they're just two mouths to feed. And when it comes to the fact of the kids walking away and trying to get out of the house, the oppressive household, it's you kind of see a different side to the aunt. She's not really a bad guy. She's just having to push herself in making difficult decisions, wrong decisions in a difficult time.
Yeah.
So that's that.
Like personally, I can't. Like, I think the film does show like a bit of her side, but it's very hard to get behind the aunt. Like, because I feel like she's essentially too cruel at times. Like I can understand like the struggles of like feeding two extra kids that weren't necessarily her responsibility, but at the same time, like, they lost their mother, their father, like his father's presumed dead at this point, but like, and they don't have anyone else to turn to. Essentially, they can't go to other relatives. And I don't know. It just
which side was she the aunt of? I think it was the father's side. Right?
I'm not really sure
because she mentions, there's other family members on your mother's side that you can go to. There's other aunts and
that might be true.
Uncles that you can go to. So I think there is a resentment there, so maybe she didn't get along. I think there's like a subtext. I think there's like maybe she didn't get along with the kid's mother, and because the kid's mother didn't get to the shelter in time, she ended up with severe burns and passed away. She ends up resenting the mother, and then she ends up taking it out on the children, And then, you see that in everyday life. It's just the fact that they're put in extreme circumstances, and that's just, unfortunately, what some people are driven to. So yeah, I do have sympathies for the aunt, because she is put in difficult positions. Does she make the right decisions? Hell no. But, I mean, you can't all be the pillar of humanity at all times. Like, there's no way that's going to be a thing. And I think it's even more... I'm playing devil's advocate here, by the way, but I'm just trying to kind of see both sides of the argument. But especially because she doesn't have kids of her own. I think if she had kids of her own, she'd be more empathetic towards the children.
Wait, wasn't there other characters in her house? Like, I thought like she was married and there was like someone else.
No, so the other characters, they were also refugees from the bombing, but they were also part of the war effort. So she thought that because they were actually helping the war effort themselves, she believes that they deserve like the rice, for instance, instead of the rice pudding, they deserve to have the plums because they're the ones that are putting in the time, the effort, and they're the ones that need, the strength. And then you've got these two little kids that literally are just sitting around playing all day. You've got the older one who's possibly just old enough to start going off and helping and getting a job, but he wants to stay at home and look after his sister. So there's the resentment. It's two people, one of which who can work but refuses to work, and then the other who cries and moans all the time. Oh shit! Cries and moans all the time, and yeah. So that's kind of her angle, and I understand that. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. No way. I don't think anyone would say that. But it's definitely decisions that have to, difficult decisions that kind of have to be made during wartime. And I don't think that just limits it down to the family way of looking at it for wartime, because if you look at greater decisions that are made during wartime, like all sorts of decisions, a lot of bad choices and decisions are made because they are forced into making those decisions, So it's kind of like a symbolic approach, and it's a way of getting that whole weird thought process of war and how we struggle as a race, and putting it down into something that we can all recognize and understand.
So going along with what it was essentially the message of the movie, I found an interesting bit about Takahata himself. Now, it should be noted that Takahata recently passed away, but we won't bring that up. But anyway,
you already did.
Yeah.
So
rest in peace, that guy. But essentially, he essentially tried to debunk what were seen as the common messages of the film. First off, he made it clear that Grave of the Fireflies was not necessarily an anti-war film. His kind of...
No, I don't think it is an anti-war film at all. I think it's more of a character piece that's happening inside. The war is just the location that it's in. This is just more of a character piece about two brother and sister and their love.
The reason why is that he was concerned actual government would take this film and say, oh, we can look at the tragedy, the war would kind of prevent a further tragedy, essentially, use it as propaganda. And there was another kind of interpretation where essentially people from 1980s Japan were basically saying, oh, this is essentially oh, look at these kids these days, they didn't have to struggle like these kids back in 1940s. Because there's a specific scene where Saito appears to break the fourth wall in a way by looking directly at the audience. And many people interpreted that as basically saying, you didn't realize what your parents had to go through. They went through hell, and you should be grateful for that.
The thing is, he grew up in this environment. He was 10, I believe, when the war was ending. So I think he's the same age as Saito in that time. So it kind of makes sense that he's going to be saying that because he grew up in that period. It's yeah, fuck, we had it rough. And I think anyone... Not just anyone in Japan, any children in Japan growing up in the war. I think any children growing up anywhere all over the world that was affected by wartime, even in Britain, we shipped our freaking orphans off to Australia and they all got raped and freaking murdered over there, So, we're to fucking blame, But you guys didn't have it too bad, but I mean, the Blitz over here, that was, ridiculous. So, it's kind of all over the world kind of thing. I definitely agree with that. And what he's saying is the fact that, people who grew up in wartime, and it's, kind of our generation's grandparents now, they had it bad. They had it real bad. And the fact that they didn't have, the technologies and the medical science and stuff as well, and the funding, and the fact that it's war, so...
Well, his main he was actually kind of against that interpretation because he was actually against, Japan's general, just kind of conformity in a sense, how Japan would just conform under a particular belief. And I think parts of these films do kind of connect to that kind of theme of anti-conformity, just in regards of the fact, during wartime, Japan was under, this super patriotic, just, never give up, never surrender, even in the midst of, terrifying efforts. Japan was losing the conflict against the US, but they kept on fighting regardless because there was this whole kind of mentality of Japan's superiority that led to people losing their lives when they didn't have to. It kind of, I don't want to necessarily say it forced the bomb, because it's kind of hard to really justify a hydrogen bomb, but like the whole sense
that was just wrong. That was downright wrong.
I know, but like in general, like there was, I think on both sides there was a definite issue, but on Japan's side, like this kind of belief, like that Japan was basically invincible, was an unhealthy one that led to more suffering, essentially. And I think the film kind of critiques that. At the one of the last scenes is Sato being surprised that Japan eventually surrendered, and like his father essentially died for nothing. Essentially, I don't know. I think it's a very complicated movie, but I think the general theme of this film is, like you were mentioning before, about empathy. How even in like very very strong times of struggle and such, you really have to be out like for each other, helping each other, even in the midst of like a great tragedy, essentially, just to be able to get through it, essentially. And I don't know, because like, I don't know, what do you think? This was definitely a weird emotional experience. Yeah. Hello? Hello? What? How much did you hear of that? Because I was giving a whole thing about the message of the film.
I have no idea. My internet cut out.
Oh.
I have no idea.
Okay.
No idea.
Well, I was talking basically about the message of the film. Basically, his main critique was actually against, like, Japan conformity, which is why he was against the whole, my generation had to suffer through this mentality. Because this was being used against, like, Japanese delinquents and stuff like that. But, like, I don't know. And I think that kind of conformity reflects the themes of the film. Because there's this scene at the very end where, like, Sato's dealing with the fact that Japan surrendered, and he's very much against that, especially after knowing his father essentially died over nothing. And I don't know. I think there's a bit of, when it comes to like a critique of Japan's ultra patriotism during World War II, essentially, because that did continue a conflict which Japan was on the losing side of. And I don't know. It's very complicated. Obviously, World War II is a very, very complicated time of, global politics. So, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not.
Yeah, I've never seen anything that's described it from Japan's point of view before. So I've seen movies that have seen it from like the Nazis' point of view. I've seen it from like Russia's point of view. I've seen films from Britain's point of view. I've seen a lot of those. I've seen a lot of Americans' point of view, but I've never actually seen it from Japan's point of view before. And like when I was watching this, I was just thinking, yeah, this is also the Blitz. This is the sort of thing that was going on in London, all over Britain back then in 1941, So it's like, it's weird that this sort of thing is happening, because that was happening over here. But instead of it being at the start of the war,
it's at the very end,
before all of our rations and food reserves have run out, this is at the end of the war.
Right.
When all the food has run out, Japan's already been pushed out of China. They're not getting the supply lines through. The Americans are pretty much about to win. They're just a force that are just going to come and invade any day. That's what Japan thought was going to happen. They thought that America was going to have to invade, but obviously they never did.
Right. Like before you were cut off, I was mentioning what I consider probably one of the main points of the film, and that is empathy. In regards to the fact that at a time, at what is essentially like the worst like part of like living through a horrific experience, which was what all these characters in the film were going through. They weren't really fighting the conflict. They were just kind of caught in the crossfire of it. It's really that empathy that kind of allows you to survive in a sense. And all the major conflicts in this film come from that lack of empathy, the apathy towards other people in such a critical condition. And I think the film's arguing that empathy is kind of what allows, you to be able to hopefully survive in such a dire situation, And
you do see the empathy side of it, because here's something that I didn't think I was going to expect, right? So when the kid is caught stealing the sugar beet or whatever from the farm, he's, the farmer's angry. He's like, it's a serious crime in wartime to steal food, it's very serious. They take him to the police, and then the police is just like, you're a fucking maniac. This is a starving child right now. What the fuck are you doing?
Yeah, exactly.
And I didn't expect that. I honestly didn't expect that. So that was nice. That was a nice little touch that they had. And they had these like little things that would come out every so often. Like there was a little thing, and you're just like, that's nice. That's like, here's the thing. It's like little fireflies that are just shimmering in the night.
Yeah.
That's what the entire. Like, I know that it's called Grave of the Fireflies, so eventually these fireflies will die. You know that. Like, it's in the title.
Right.
It's in the title. It's at the start of the film. Like, you can't be surprised by that.
Yeah.
But, like, all these little glimmers of hope and everything, that's resembled by the fireflies. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think it also, the fireflies kind of represent the main characters, obviously, because they are, like, just, the whole thing is that fireflies die too young, essentially, and that's essentially both characters. They die really prematurely, and, it's, there's a tragedy to it, but, there's, I don't know, that, like, there is that also, that kind of metaphoric connection. So, yeah, what do you think of essentially like the scenes where Setsu kind of like it's supposed to represent kind of an afterlife for them, essentially, because like it first shows up after Saito dies, and they're like mainly when they're shown in red.
The only time that came out was when they were doing like a scene transition over a longer period of time, and they weren't there that often. But I thought it was a kind of a nice way just to kind of thread the dots kind of thing, just like space it out, because like I don't know, I think there's like 5 or 6 long stories, and they're all kind of thread with these little bits of the afterlife kind of thing.
Right.
And you see right at the beginning, when he becomes like this ghost, he's holding his sister's hand. He gives the sister the fruit juice or fruit loops or whatever it's called.
Yeah, the fruit drops. Yeah.
And then right at the end. So it just threads the film together. Otherwise, it would just be a lot of blocky stories put together with like big time lapses. I mean, it'd still work, but it wouldn't thread and weave the story as well as it did.
And I think...
so I actually like that. I think that's actually a fundamental part of the film.
And I do think it...
Without that, I don't think it hits home as well.
And I do think like those moments... They add a little bit of hope, at the end of what is such a very brutally just like tears your soul out experience, essentially. Because it does kind of, because the afterlife in this film kind of serves as like that happy ending to like these characters like exploits. Because they die very, very horrible deaths from starvation, but like at the end of the day, they still have each other, and that's the main thing of the film. These characters have each other. And at the very least, they get to look on to the future. Like the last shot, they're kind of looking on at a modern day Koba, essentially. So at the very least, they get to be together in death. So yeah. But one final fact before we close things off: this was actually a double feature. This was released theatrically as a double feature. You know what the other film that it was released with? Mm-hmm. My Neighbor Totoro.
My Neighbor Totoro. I've got it right here in front of me.
Yeah, like that. Isn't that just a contrast?
I haven't seen that one either, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a different movie than Grave of the Fireflies.
Is it?
It's
interesting. Okay.
So anyway, now's your pick. Sorry.
Yeah, now it's my pick, and it's not going to be My Neighbor Totoro.
Okay.
I didn't actually realize that was a double feature, that it was released at the same time.
I didn't know either.
But I am going to come a lot more into the future to the last Studio Ghibli film, and no, it's not Miyazaki. You thought I was going Miyazaki, but it's not, because I wanted to have a round collection of work from... If I wanted to do Miyazaki films, I'd have just done a Miyazaki theme, but no, we're having a round collection of all the different directors, screenwriters, or whatever.
Okay.
So... I'm gonna go with the very last one, which is When Marnie Was There.
Okay,
which I believe I have seen.
Have you seen it?
I've seen bits of it.
Have you? Okay.
Yes.
I have not seen this movie, so this is gonna be interesting. So,
okay,
I was not.
This is the first one that I have seen out of the ones that we've done. So that's kind of why I chose this as well, because I've been going blind into all these, and I don't like going into blind. It's a good film, at least I think. From what I remember, it was a good.
Okay,
film.
I've never. Yeah, like I'm going into this blind because I don't know that much about it. Like most of the non-Ghibli films, for the most part, I mean non-Miyazaki films, I'm not 100% familiar with. So, like especially the more recent ones, like I haven't even seen like anything past Ponyo. I haven't seen. So, like this is gonna be interesting.
Anything past Ponyo, so
Arrietty from Up on Poppy.
Princess Kaguya.
Wind Rises.
Poppy Hill. That's one.
Wind Rises.
Wind Rises.
Oh,
yeah,
he's making a new. Miyazaki's making a new one for 2020. How Do You Live?
What wasn't Poppy Hill directed by the other Miyazaki?
Yeah, his son, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Anyway, either way, so this is your chance to go and watch out. Watch out. Go and watch When Marnie Was There. So yeah, that's pretty much it. When Marnie Was There.
We're gonna close off the theme of Miyazaki. I mean, not Miyazaki. Studio Ghibli. Fuck. But anyway.
God damn it! You're doing that every time. You've got a hard bone. You've got a honer.
A honer.
A hard boner for Miyazaki.
I mean, his movies are good, man. I don't like. Are you gonna deny that?
Well, I mean, the last film was fucking. Actually, you know what? Grave of the Fireflies is my favorite out of the 3 we've seen so far.
Okay.
100%. Yeah, I loved it.
Really?
But I think that's because I've been in the mentality of like the World War for like the last month or so.
Okay.
I've been watching World War II in color, which is a great piece of television. Basically, there's it's a British-made piece where they get all the a lot of the footage from World War II and they like kind of color.
Oh, that's interesting.
They add color to it, and then it's just explaining what went on in the war. And there's just some great. It's a great. If you like World War II, watch that. It's one of the best documentaries on World War II by a long way.
Okay. Well, anyway, bye guys. Bye. On that note, see ya, bitches.